Welcome to Default Assault, where we take on everything by default. I am your host, Demosthenes, and with me, as always, is our awesome co-host, Mr. Kyle Nash. How's it going, Kyle?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to set phasers on stun. Bring it.
Well, if you haven't guessed, today we will be talking about what else? Star Trek Discovery, the latest incarnation of the Star Trek universe, the first arguable television incarnation of the series since early 2000s with Enterprise. Um, I have to say, before we even get started with this, what the heck is it with Star Trek in its last three incarnations? Ever since Voyager ended, we've had Enterprise, prequel. We've had Star Trek, the new film series, prequel. We've had goddamn Star Trek Discovery, another prequel. When are we going to get to see something new? But is the old stuff still worth it? That's what we'll be discussing today.
Well, I think the reason why they go back to the prequel direction and there's a couple things. Okay, first of all, there's the practical aspect, right? The 20 I forget when next gen is set. Is it the 23rd century, the 25th century?
24th.
24th century. Okay, so I split the difference. But the punchline is if you start going too far into the future, it gets a little, you got to try to think up, okay, so Star Trek invented cell phones and the communicator, then next gen kind of invented invented air quotes, like H.G. Wells styles talk about it before it was a reality kind of thing, like on-demand entertainment and holograms and things like that. You got to have that gimmickry and gadgetry aspect if you're going to kick it up to a different time period, which another Star Trek would have to do, you would feel like. Moreover, you would have to be burdened with either reforming, reshaping, possibly races, or coming up with new. It's a lot more to ask for. When really, this day and age, if you're building a Star Trek show, you're in that state where you're trying to get it to hook back on, and the best way to do that is to build on the essential blocks that are already there. And let me add this on top of that. So you have all that in play. If you're gonna go back and the statement I've heard made, and granted, I'm stealing this point. It was better said probably by Bob Chipman, aka Movie Bob, if you're checking out YouTube every now and again. There, the statement made when the J.J. Abrams Star Treks came out is they were trying to make Star Trek cool again, right? The problem is, in its incarnation, it was never bleeping cool. It was dictated towards the sci-fi crowd, towards the nerds, right? So it was never cool. So if you're making it cool, you're changing things inevitably. You're concentrating on different stuff that what would have been concentrated on the original incarnation. So you are actually reimagining what's there. That's why J.J. Abrams' movies looks different than any of the stuff before it. They're going with the cool aspect there.
Yes, the shiny Apple Store in space. But I will say this. I mean, there is an element of nostalgia to this. I mean, by far,
Sure.
And if there are some people, this show is very much dedicated to nostalgia. Check out our required viewings for more of that. But at the same time, it's interesting that you brought up the idea of going to the future and having to create more. I like the idea of boldly going where no Star Trek series has gone before. But at the same time, if you go back to the past, you are limiting yourself to a degree as far as storytelling, especially if you were to shove it into the established continuity, and that's something that Star Trek Discovery. If there are some blatant glaring pieces that stand out, there are those points that kind of break continuity.
That's a legit point by you, and I'm not saying you won't get that. Okay, keep in mind you're looking at this as a movie critic and an artist. I'm trying to tell you about the people who are staring at it with the green in mind, and what they're trying to do before they take any risks like that and come up with a race that could be the next Jar Jar Binks, or actually their version of the Jar Jar Binks anomaly. They want to make sure they establish something safe and then build. Granted, I've interviewed none of these guys, but you've seen enough in Hollywood that they deal in safe before they deal in risk.
I will tell you, the only green I'm interested in when it comes to Star Trek are those
Or the
green in
chick,
skin.
whatever. Yeah, no, I got it.
But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe and let us know in the comments what your thoughts are about Star Trek Discovery, the latest series, and which debuted on CBS over the weekend. And if you want to watch the rest of the series, you have to sign up for CBS All Access, $5.99 per month for commercials, or $9.99 per month without commercials. It is not surprising that overnight it ranked near the top 10 of most pirated television shows. This is the death knell for this stupid, asinine idea of a rollout. The entire idea of multiple streaming services, it's going to get to the point where people are just not going to be paying for it. People are going to be pirating it. They're shooting themselves in the foot. But we can go on and on about that. If there's one thing that I can say about Star Trek Discovery, one thing that kind of jumped out at me is that I really felt that it was missing a little bit of humor. Even Star Trek DS9, which could be argued is the most serious of the Star Trek incarnations, had quite a bit of well placed humor in it. This one felt very emotionless to me as far as that is concerned. But what were your thoughts about that, or Discovery as a whole? Now that you've seen the first two episodes.
So with Discovery, look, man, to be honest, I thought it was kind of a fulfilling experience. First of all, to be clear, um, love, and I know this is a minor detail, love what they did with the opening sequence. The way they do the credits and the blueprints and all that, the way the musical theme pays tribute to the classic, theme that it has to with the Roddenberry Star Trek is very well executed while also keeping its own identity.
Kind of a cross between Star Trek and James Bond with the floating guns and so forth. Not that that's a complaint, but when I saw that, that's the first thing that jumped through my mind.
Yeah,
Obviously,
not inclined to take it that way, considering the fact that you have Bond on the brain between the two of us.
Golden eye, I found his weakness. Golden eye, he'll do what I please. Golden eye, no time for sweetness, but a bitter kiss will bring him to his knees.
But I mean, I've seen it done other places, but not really this way.
mm-hmm.
And I'm not prepared to give you an example of like, oh yeah, they totally did that here, and whatever. The whole aspect of the writings and the blueprints and the pictures being, I mean, hell,
it was different. It was different than anything else they've done before.
Right. I mean, Airwolf did a version of that, was showing some of the pictures of the helicopter in the specs, but
that theme
it was a great damn thing, no doubt. But again, that feel in this modern age on TV, the way they did that modern spin made it work. This is something that definitely came out sounding a lot better than a Justin Bieber musical album. That's right, I said it. But no, look, I overall enjoyed the experience. I know there's a lot of hubbub with things that they did, the look of the Klingons and all that. If you expected it to be the same, you are the problem. Okay. They weren't going to do like Force Awakens and just make another version of New Hope here. Okay. They were going to do something that was different to a larger extent, like they did with the J.J. Abrams Star Treks.
The design of the Klingons, I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of it, but it's not a deal breaker for me. I mean, after all, the design of the Klingons did change dramatically between the original series and the motion picture, to the point where they had to write in their change of physical appearance into the remaining of the shows, especially with DS9 is where they kind of delve into it. That didn't bother me too much.
I didn't think it was that bad, but I'll put it this
It felt
way.
like something out of Stargate more than Star Trek for me.
Call by you. I feel like what they did in this TV show was better than what they did in Star Trek Into Darkness.
Oh, I can faithfully agree with that. Star Trek Into Darkness, I actually probably consider it to be the worst Star Trek film.
They ripped it right out of friggin' Warcraft. It was disgusting.
But And there, I mean, there are a couple of similarities, but I don't want to delve too much into that. I was a little puzzled by kind of the Egyptian-inspired garb of the Klingons. That felt very different than what it was before. But like I said, these are just minor details. Yeah, some people are probably going to be really upset over it. No, that's not a deal breaker for me. For me, I'm much more interested in the character and the stories.
Right.
And I
I
can't
like
even really tell you much about the characters because and without going very much into spoilers, at one point it probably will be, but these first two episodes, they they feel like they're very much a prologue to the rest
yes,
of the series.
absolutely.
Yeah, with the exception of one side character, almost everybody that you see in these first two episodes is I wouldn't say inconsequential, but they're not part of the recurring cast as far as we know. Um, and I will say this for and I love her. I always mispronounce her name, so I apologize in advance. I love Michelle Yeoh. She's very much the female Jackie Chan. I loved her ever since I saw her in Super Cop and then in Tomorrow Never Dies. She is fantastic. The female Jean-Luc Picard in a way. I loved her character, and by her special guest star status, it's kind of a shame we won't be seeing much of her. To me, she was the best character in these first two episodes. The main character, her name is Michael, which confused me in the flashbacks. I didn't feel they really established that was her name. So all of a sudden you're seeing
Yeah.
this, yeah.
I,
Which it's creator Brian Fuller. That's something that he kind of has done in some of his past series. Give female characters distinctly male names. It's something he enjoys, I guess. Who cares? But the main character of Michael, I wasn't really into. I didn't. I liked a little bit of what they were doing. I immediately thought of Tom Paris and Voyager. As some of his past storyline is kind of mixed in with hers. But I didn't find her to be a very compelling character, honestly. Some of the stuff she did were compelling, but her she felt like they were. It was a combination of let's see, we'll take Spock and we'll take Riker. We'll shove them together and make him stupid.
well, okay. First of all, I don't think it's fair to call Burnham stupid. That's a bit of a reach. I think there's a lot of. I think she's a conflicted character identity wise anyway, but I feel like she's a fit, and let me tell you why. Keep in mind, the fact that she wasn't the most compelling character is perfectly sensible by you. Matter of fact, I happen to agree with it. But she's in place as a passive protagonist. Yeah, give me points for that there, critic. A passive protagonist, in other words, somebody who's having stuff happen to them rather than she shaking up the environment, save one significant exchange that we can't get into until we break spoiler territory. But um, I feel like that was necessary for those two episodes for her to be written that way, just because they were doing and continuity dump blah, all over you. And oh, by the way, this continuity is about ready to take a dramatic shift on top of everything else too. So that character needed to be somebody that was a good slate. And the reason why that's captured well is if she's overly emotional, that's the human side. If she's stoic and more of a side character, she's acting Vulcan right there. It's practical. That doesn't make a great character all the time, granted, but it's practical to move the story. And what I think you're going to find is a lot of your characters who are not her, right, who are side characters, are going to be more of your favorite ones.
And listen, when I say stupid, I don't mind character flaws. In fact, I invite character flaws. Flawed characters are interesting characters. Perfect characters are you don't want to watch a role model every single week. But here's the thing. I mean, okay, so you're gonna take this. I understand the duality between her humanity and her Vulcan upbringing. I
Oh, no,
understand
yeah,
the
that's not your beef. I
yeah.
know that.
I understand the tragedy of her past, but everything that the way they set up this character, especially at the beginning, with her essentially being a Vulcan and then getting to the point where she starts making some, let's just say, rash decisions, made her the most emotionally unstable character I have ever seen on Star Trek. At least main character, period. Maybe we can sum up real quick our feelings about the series before we jump into spoilers. So you first.
Look, man, I think the first 2 episodes were solid enough. I would continue to watch the series. Granted, I'm not paying $9.99 for the crap, but I would be more inclined to continue to watch this series. That being said, and I have to word this without spoiling it, I'm also extremely disappointed with the direction they're deciding to take, because it also completely changes the flavor of the first 2 episodes they just friggin' showed me.
Agreed. Actually, 100%. I agree. I think there's promise there. The first few, I mean, the first couple of episodes, like we've already established, are very much a prologue. The rest of the series is going to be different, completely different. I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops. Um, so I would say I would probably just say as of the moment it seems flawed but promising. Um, if you're able to overlook some of the minor inconsistencies, um, and yeah, we'll see where it goes from there. I mean, as of the moment, if somebody were to hold a gun to my head, yes, I wouldn't rank it up there with TNG or TOS. STD is gonna have to stand on its own for the moment.
All right, class. Spoilers, bitches. Spoilers. So now that we're officially in spoiler
Yeah.
territory, I'm gonna cover the Burnham thing more
Okay.
directly.
Yes.
It's a source of things I liked and part of the problems. I'll go with the problems first, since we just freshly talked about it. I hate this bullshit that she's now dishonorably discharged and off in some fucking prison route to shit fucking mutiny thing. Okay, you have completely obliterated the first 2 fucking episodes you locked me into, because just a lot of that stuff was cool. I like the concept. Wait. You can't kill him, but if you capture him, oh shit, we killed him. So all the stuff you're trying to stop happened anyway. Fuck. Okay. I like plots like that. There are shows that do that when they're, or hell, if you've ever played a Mass Effect game, all right, we're totally gonna do this. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Another twist. Ah! You know, if you play the game well, you end up winning the day. The end of the series outright, ultimately, I know is a matter of some conjecture, but the punchline is, hey, you're doing the thing. Oh shit, this happened. Hey, you're doing the thing. Oh shit. Oh, this will totally work. You gotta be, and that element was there. I enjoyed that. But in fairness, I also have to say that there is great potential in what they're doing with Michael Burnham, because the protagonists of shows have been Federation entities. Moreover, they have been entities that are established with some faction, right? In this case, obviously the Federation, but they're also taking off the table if they wanted to do like a series, called Romulus, where it was just, the Romulan, it was the Romulan perspective, or, or the Klingon perspective, whatever.
The entire series told in subtitles.
There would be a lot of that, right? The other thing I thought, the point of view that one does not have a consideration of, even though the universe is still the same and they're still trying from that, it's the POV, the point of view that they have the opportunity to do. Is Michael Burnham going to turn out to be more of a pirate entity? Not to say that she's going to go around and chase booty. No, Demo, it's not a word. But somebody in there said, hey, what if they do it from the perspective of somebody who was like Ricardo Montalban's Khan, who had people who were on a ship and he was the captain of it just because he was the only one that had any element of experience to him, and that way they can travel into other pieces of space that we would have never seen as intimately because it's someplace the Federation could have never traveled in the past. So there's an opportunity to get that newness you're looking for. Sure, it's old stuff that's referenced, but you've never really actually gotten a good look at Kronos, Romulus. You'll get to see the stuff that had only been talked about in the past if they're going that direction that I'm suggesting. If they just do a simple redemption story and now she looks as your Federation officer again, that's a missed goddamn opportunity.
You see, that's the thing. I'm very much certain that that's what's going to happen.
Sure.
And like you said, there is potential if they keep kind of more of a rogue aspect to the character. I think that will be pretty cool. But the inconsistencies between these first two episodes and what comes later, I can easily harken back to the production woes that this series had coming forward. I mean, you have to remember that this series was, from my understanding, was originally intended to debut as early as last year for the 50th anniversary of the franchise, and obviously that didn't happen. And while they were shooting, they ended up stopping, reworking the show, and then they brought in Jason Isaacs. I don't believe he was early on. He was later. He was added later. I am excited, mind you. On a side note, I am excited to see Jason Isaacs as a starship captain. I think he as an actor. I mean, Lucius Malfoy as a starship captain alone just makes me very excited. I like I said, I would have loved it if they kept Michelle Yeoh as the captain. She was excellent. Their chemistry was excellent. That actually, their interactions are kind of what sold me on the show. And having her, I mean, the moment they beamed down, okay. Actually, the moment I saw special guest star, I'm like, okay, she's done for. Surprise, surprise. But here's the thing. The entire setup of this, the entire idea, they've never done this in Star Trek before, where they basically, in the opening couple of episodes, they put the focus squarely on one character and a little bit on a potential side character based on the previews. But basically making this decision to hang it from this character's perspective, the way she's written, it's kind of set up in a way that we're expected to like her rather than them making us like her.
See, I'm not quite there. Where I'm at, I mean, there were more perspectives than even those main two, and I forget this character's name because his course of action is actually the one I would have taken personally.
Shrimp face.
The least you could call him is Prawn Man or something. No, but no, he's actually introducing the fact, hey, dickheads, withdraw for the love of God, but I don't think the drastic nature of the character is the character's fault. Charles, she was counseled into being that aggressive and to seeing that was the answer. And basically in her mind, knowing that was the answer. Because if a Vulcan who is devoted to logic says, this worked before, and I already know shit that went down that these other cats don't have perspective on because they could not see what I was encountering when I did the jump to the Klingon ship, which I got to tell you was a reasonably cool gimmick. I like how they set that up. The scene with the encounter of the Klingon I felt was well done. I felt like a lot of stuff with the Klingons, while a reimagining, was relatively well executed. They've made the Klingons much more rich than a bunch of warmongers.
I disagree with that. They were some of the best Next Generation episodes were the stories involving Worf and the Klingon Council. That's when the Klingons became interesting to me.
Well, and then the Undiscovered Country, where they have to start talking peace because of the explosion in the I think what was it, the dilithium mine or whatever. All that stuff that went on with Chancellor Gorkon was strong. I like that a lot. It showed a richness in the Klingons that you don't normally. When I say warmongering, I'm more speaking to the original Star Trek. Those cats, were always just threatening and nothing else.
Yeah, they were the Russian. In the same way that the creator has admitted that in Star Trek Discovery, they're supposed to be Trump supporters.
Well, right. I mean, look, a lot of that is on the nose too.
Yeah, two
Like,
on the nose.
exactly. I'm like, you're overdoing it. Okay. Look, all these subordinate hot white guys. This is starting to sound like a fantasy my wife drew up. Okay, you know, but the
Tell us more. Please
no
don't. Please don't.
no no. I say that as a joke. I don't think that's something my wife would actually put together. But the punchline being, it's the multicultural nature of the thing is something that you address with Star Trek. Are they pushing that envelope too far? Frankly, if they're trying to make them Trump supporters, the stereotype in question has a complete and total lack of NASCAR and Budweiser logos. Okay, if they're supposed to be Trump supporters, I think that's a very heavy miss on their part.
Oh, it's heavy-handed. But then again, let's be honest. Star Trek has been heavy-handed before, but the episodes that we tend to, huh?
I just don't think they get it right. They make them to fit the stereotype that you hear portrayed in the press. I think they made the Klingons were too intelligent.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I mean, we finally saw albino representation. That's something you don't see very often.
That part, I was like, okay, I see what they're doing here. But, anyways,
Actually, like I said, to be honest, like I like the show overall. I think the effects were fantastic.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Some of the laser effects going back and forth were a little bit more Star Warsy to me than Star Trek. But once again, that's a nitpick. The only scene that actually legitimately annoyed me is there is a line in the second episode where one of the crew members he's suffering from shock from what's going on. He stumbles into the brig and starts telling Michael that he thought they were this was all about exploration. I thought we were explorers, and then he immediately gets sucked out of the goddamn ship. I mean, that is a message to everybody that is a message to the audience that this isn't the boring exploring Trek that you're used to. This show is going to be about action. I hope that isn't the case, but it really came across to me as very, very cynical. It annoyed me.
That's a good point by you, and it's very possible that that's a threat. Keep in mind, as heavy-handed as they're being, I think what they're trying to do is paint the Federation side as innocent as possible, saying that they were not the pugnacious ones. Oh, we're just trying to explore. Now we have to defend ourselves because of the evil, evil Klingons. Even though I don't know what message they're actually trying to portray with First Blood technically being drawn by Burnham, but let's not go there.
I'm wondering what the end game of this is, because the end game of this conflict is with Kirk in Undiscovered Country. So this series is if they're setting up, I mean, they're gonna have to localize it to that one albino who I assume is gonna be, I forget his character name, I apologize, but that character it feels like he's being set up as the one who's gonna step up and be the big baddie. And then once again, that might all change with the next couple of episodes. It's there. It really feels to me that it's kind of been there, done that. They're apparently going to be fitting a character like Harry Mudd into this. Apparently, they cast him, and he's going to be in this first season. I cannot see a character like that in this show. In fact, I cannot see this world co-inhabiting with the world of the original series. And you can say, okay, yes, they're very, very different shows, but the connections are very strong. You have Sarek, Spock's father, who is very much is a different character in this. He had antipathy towards the Federation because of his entire interaction with Spock. Don't go there. Don't go there. Go to Vulcan Science Academy. Yes, maybe he changed his mind if the Federation becomes more militarized for the Klingon conflict. That's the only thing that can salvage that change of his character. I get that. But shoving him in, once again, very much fan service. Oh, look, maybe you might have a young Spock in a future episode. Give me a break.
It is fan service, but here's the perfect defense that you cannot convict with a jury on this case based on this this concept. Sarek has always been a great diplomat. I mean, he may have his issues with his own son going versus a pupil at the school. Perhaps he thought she was a better fit because with her inability to get the emotion under control from the attack that she withstood from the Klingons, or rather her family, I should say. Maybe he thought she was a better fit at the Federation, whereas his precious Spock, he wasn't about that.
Well, it's lucky for her that she has a mental telepathy connection to Sarek, or his ghost shows up and is able to sit on desks.
It was more ridiculous a concept, that or what they did with Jor-El and Kal-El in Man of Steel. Because I got the same vibe. That's why I mentioned it. Russell Crowe popping up randomly like, oh, I was dead, but I'm not, because genocide doesn't affect computer programs or something.
I will say I bought it more in Superman than I did here, because in Superman, in the past films, he was able to communicate via the crystals and so forth, so that was kind of set up. Maybe not him showing up as a fully formed ghost avatar. But there was a little bit of a threat. You've never seen the Vulcans be able to do something of this kind of magnitude before. And it's not like he's showing up and she's remembering instances where they talk. He's giving her information she doesn't know. I mean, let's take a step back here. It reminded me of anything. It reminded me of Battlestar Galactica and I forget his name, Baltar. What was his name? His connection to the Silent Girl and how he's seeing her in his mind everywhere. That is the more apt comparison in my view, but it worked in Battlestar. But in this, that's a bit of, if it wasn't the fact that he was dispelling information, I probably wouldn't care as much. That was just a little ridiculous, but. Like I said, I mean, we can nitpick it to death. I think there's promise in the show. I don't think it's as terrible as people say. I'm very mixed. There's potential, and maybe the next few episodes fix a lot of the issues I'm having with it. So, would you say that you would continue watching?
Oh yeah, I said that earlier on.
Yeah.
I continue watching it. I don't plan on paying $6 a month to do it. Nor would I pirate it at all. But
hopefully it's available on Netflix in almost every other country. It's a Netflix show.
Yeah, I mean, that's its own share of bullshit in its own right, but I won't even touch that.
Yeah, this show, I mean, this entire enterprise of putting it on CBS. Thank you. I mean, I'm proud that you saw what I did there. It's crippling. It's stupid. This show, Star Trek deserves to be on prime time. It deserves to be seen by kids. The impact that this show had in so many different generations of young people and old people, but young people watching it, being inspired, and then going on to invent all the things that they predicted. Don't put it behind a money wall. That is so despicable to me.
Let me give you the short version. Don't hold the damn thing for ransom. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, more or less. So I say let's continue on. Maybe we'll revisit this show in the future. I am very interested to see where it goes. Hopefully boldly. And yeah, that's where I feel comfortable with leaving it. Unless you have anything else to add.
Yes. To boldly go where no man has gone before, with bad puns by default.
Make sure to like and subscribe, turn on those notifications, follow me on hilaritybydefault.com, on Twitter @defaulthilarity, and Facebook, hilaritybydefault.com. Kyle, where can we find you?
Of course, I'm on Twitter @theSOTG. You can find my works there, and on Facebook, the student of the game.
Until next time, this is Default Assault reminding you that life is hilarious by default.